Welcome everybody to day one of LearnFest. We hope that you have a fabulous day, hour and a half with us today, and then come and join us again tomorrow as well. Today, we're going to present on 3 different topics, and this is really digging into different educational tools and then how you can use those directly with your Bulb portfolio. So we're going to get started. I want to introduce Mr. Kris Jones. He is a teacher, social studies teacher in Adams 12, which is located in Colorado. He teaches at Thornton High School, sophomores and IB seniors. So he teaches world history there and uses Google Classroom with his students and utilized it not only with the students just normally in class, but then also during remote learning, and has a great presentation to show you kind of his tips and tricks about Google Classroom and then how he utilizes Bulb portfolios along with Google Classroom. So Kris, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and kick it off to you.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming. This is fun, especially I haven't been in front of a classroom in a couple months, so this is fun. So what Bria approached me about was how did I integrate Google into distance learning and remote learning? And I have an advantage because I'm married to Bria, and when she saw me struggling a little bit with distance learning, she said, hey, let's try this. And I'd been a little slow to pick up Bulb, but distance learning really pushed me into it. And I gotta say, I'm really excited about bringing it and integrating it into my classroom this next year with whatever that brings. So what I learned from distance teaching is that Bulb offers an easy to use integration of all the resources that I had been using in Google Classroom and Google Drive. And then what we all care about is our students. And what I learned was both my sophomores and my seniors enjoyed how I ended up using my Bulb pages as resource pages for them in one place, and I'll get to that, but also as reflection pages. And especially my seniors who were going through a lot in the last couple of months, they needed a place to just let it all out and to share with me and to ask me questions and all that kind of thing, especially my ones that just weren't comfortable with using Zoom. So Bulb really became a really great place for that for my seniors. My overall goal is to present how I use Bulb to integrate Google Classroom and Google Drive into my teaching. So I'm going to start with the basics and share my screen with you. And what you'll see when you get to Google Classroom, you sign on and you get the opportunity to make classes. And when you make these classes, there's a variety of ways you can do it. I really like how Google has made their Google Classroom and most of their suite very intuitive, and you can figure out different ways that work for you. For me, I chose to have all my IB history classes in one class instead of separating out by class periods, and all my world history classes the same. You'll also notice that clubs and organizations that I belong to also show up on Google Classroom, so I can help integrate and help with those, so you can have those there as well. And then when you make your class, what you get is the landing page is the stream. And what I love about this for student use is they'll be able to see upcoming, and for me as a teacher, I'm looking at it through the teacher view, and I'll show you the student view in a few minutes. You get to see upcoming work, and then the stream is used both to post, hey, this is what's coming up. The students will also see that I've put up a new assignment, which I'll show you in just a minute. But it can also be used as a message board. So a lot of times just posting, hey, this is what's going on. And especially in that time of distance learning, I could really be in touch with my students as often as I needed to be. All right, so as a teacher, the most important thing that you'll find is the Classwork tab. And again, you can set this up however you want. What I like to do is break my units up and create a unit for each unit that we're studying. So for distance learning, I broke it up into the weeks. So we ended up for my seniors in the 5th week of distance learning, and I have 3 assignments here that I posted. Now what I found was, oh, sorry, I already went over that. So when you click an assignment, what you get is you can embed, first you give a brief description of what the assignment is. At this point in the process, we had basically been doing the same assignments, same kind of assignments repeatedly, just different versions of them. So I didn't have to be as specific, but give them what they needed to do. I embedded a Google form. We can come back to that later. But as a teacher, what you see is that I have 5 students who turned in the assignments that I had yet to grade. I had 14 that have not that were assigned the Google form but hadn't completed it, and I've graded 36 of those students. So for me, it's hey, make sure you get this done, make sure you put these grades in, or nudge those students who need that extra push to get it in. All right, and then how you do that, and I'm going to show you 2 ways. I'm going to show you the Google Classroom way to create assignments, and then the easier way, which is to put a bold page in, which is actually through the bold website. So I'm going to show you those 2 ways. So if you're familiar with Google Classroom, you click on create and you have a bunch of different options: an assignment, a quiz, a question is another way to do a discussion board. Material is how you can post resources. And what I found was, especially with my sophomores, I was posting several links of materials, YouTube videos, articles that I wanted them to read, or directly from the textbook or whatever. And my sophomores were getting lost. Even though it's all in that one section, they were getting lost. They weren't finding stuff. They were having trouble with that. So when I told Bria I was struggling with that, she said, well, just put it all on a bold page. And so I did, and it completely changed, and my attendance and my grading became a lot easier. So that's the second thing I'm going to show you when I get to Google Drive, is how to put all of it onto one page. But for now, like I said, I'm going to do an assignment. So click an assignment. And for this one, I'm going to use a bold template. The bold templates are really cool, and they've done a really good job with creating one. And it's going to be an end of the year reflection. And then in the instructions, what I found is with most students, you need as much instruction as you can possibly get. So what I really want you to make sure you do, if you're using bold, is to make sure that you tell them to copy their own template, because they get their own fresh copy of the template. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Make sure that, and then also to make sure that they have to not only publish their page, but they also have to go back to Google Classroom and they have to click the Turn It In button that shows up. And that would be on their sidebar that's over here. And I'm going to show you what that looks like as well. The other thing about assignments that I like about Google Classroom is you have a lot of different options. So if I'm over here and I want to assign it to both my seniors and my sophomores, because they're both going to do an end of the year reflection, I can click on both those boxes and it will show up. In both, I don't have to make the same assignment twice. It just automatically copies it over to my other classes. And the other thing that I like about Google is that if I have a modified assignment, so I have a student with an IEP or 504 or whatever, I can choose by unclicking all students, I can choose which students I want to view this part of the assignment, and then I can have an assigned modified version. Or if I'm working with my ELD students and I need it in a different language, I can change it over to that, or whatever it is, whatever I feel like I need to do, I can choose specific students. Since it's an IB class with my IB seniors, I use IB rubrics quite a bit. I have the option to add an IB rubric if I need to, and I can change those points. If I'm using a 6-point rubric or an 8-point rubric, I can do that. Then very handy for teachers, due dates. And like I said, if I stick the due date and I put a time stamp on it, then it's going to show up in that first box when those students land on that stream page. They're going to see that date and that time. They say, oh, I got to get it done by this time. And the other nice thing is it will tell me as the teacher if the student turned the assignment in on time, or if they were late, or if they didn't turn it in at all. And then the other nice thing is you can automatically put it into your topics, your units. So I can create a topic, call it distance learning week 6 or end of the year or whatever I want to do, or I can do it in week 5. And then I can assign it right away. I can schedule it to come out tomorrow at 8 a.m. If I have different classes, I can have it start at the beginning of that class, or I can save it as a draft if I'm going to come back at it later, which I'm going to do there. So that's how you would make an assignment. And there you see it's gray because it has a draft. If it's blue, that means it's live. So that's how you would create an assignment in Google Classroom. And what I learned was that's really great. And that's how I've been doing it for years. But when I started playing around with Bulb, I learned that they have made integration super easy, and these reflections, like I said, were really super helpful for my seniors, especially. They just needed that little place to go and share their thoughts and their feelings and their questions and their worries and what's going to happen and how am I going to get into college and all of that kind of stuff. So these reflections were super great and super helpful. So what you would do is you would go to Bulb and you could go to the templates, which is what I did. And I found this end of the year reflection template. And as a teacher, you can go in and you scroll to the bottom, find one that you like, make sure you work through it. And you can go through and, make changes and change it to however you want to do it. Once you feel good about the template that you're going to use, you're going to click on publish. And when you click on publish, this is where you get to make it a template so that the students can then go in and manipulate it and change it to use it and make it their own. So the first thing that you would want to do is click on save this as a template and make sure that that's clicked. Then what really gets it going is create this private share link. And with this create your private share link, it's creating a link within the document that you can use one of two ways. So you'll publish it. And then once it's reloaded, you'll click on the share. Now you can, if you're more comfortable with the Google Classroom, you can always copy, you can shorten the URL and copy it and then go back and you can paste it onto that assignment that I was in the middle of making. Or what I really, really love about the integration that Bulb has done is they've made it with one button. You find the Google Classroom icon, you click on it, it automatically is back into my Google Classroom. I can choose which class I'm wanting to share it to. I can choose my action. Most of the time you'll do an assignment or a material, and I'll show what that looks like later. And I'll click go, and then you go through the exact same process that you had on the right side of the screen, only it's here in Bulb instead. So which classes do you want to use? Which students do you want to do? The title, Bulb reflection. And when you're doing instructions, make sure the last thing you always do is be sure to click return in button in. Okay, and then you can assign it and you're good to go. And then from there, you click on view. It takes me back to my stream. I think since I'm on break, my Google Classroom knows that I'm on break, so it's not putting any of those work up, but that's what you would normally see the assignment there. You can see that Christopher Jones, the faculty, posted a new assignment, and they can either click on it here or they can go to their classwork and it shows up. So there it is. And that's what they would see. So I have 55 assigned, 0 I've turned it in. So what does that look like from the student's end? And thankfully I'm able to go and click on another student. So my student, so this is what a student's page would look like. Here's all their different classes. He has joined my IB history class. So he would see that the assignment was posted here. So he would click on there. He would see that it's upcoming and it's due here. And then he could click there and there's his assignment. So what he would do is he would click on the template. And he would see that it's here. And what he would need to do
Yeah, he'll go to the bottom of the page and click use template.
right.
Yeah.
So he would go down, okay. And
yeah,
he would say, oh, there it is. Okay, it didn't come up the first time. So he would go down and he would say use template. And it says that he's copying a template. That just tells him that he's making his own that he can make a change to. And you notice it goes to his home page. And he scrolls down and he finds the end of the year reflection. He clicks on it. And now this is his page. Notice his icon has changed from my icon to his icon and his name. And he can go through and he can make all the changes. You have little tips and tricks and do whatever he wants to do to that. And then when he feels good about it, he's gonna go to publish. He's gonna do the same, create a private share link so that it shares directly with the teacher. And then he's gonna click publish. Then he will share it. And when he shares it, just like before, he has the Google Classroom. And this is definitely something you'd want to work through with your students and show them. But he clicks on the Google Classroom. He makes sure he knows which class he's in and which class he's going to.
I think you have to set a due date in your assignment for it to show up there.
Okay. Thought I did. Okay. So now we click on the Google Classroom. All right, there it is. All right, and then he clicks the specific assignment that he needs to turn it in for. He clicks go. He's gonna click attach. And then just like the teacher did, he's gonna view the assignment. And then most importantly, the only way I see it that it's actually turned in and it gives me that data is if he clicks turn in. Okay, and from his end, he's done with that part of it. And then as the teacher, what I can do is I go in, and like I saw before, now I see that one of my students has turned it in, and I click on that. And this is where you would do your grading from. And this is, you're always looking for ease of use and how to make this easy. So what I have over here on the left-hand side is the student who's turned it in. When Aubriana or Caleb or Raymond turns in their assignments, theirs will populate into the turned in section. And it also shows me who hasn't turned it in. At this point, especially with distance learning, what I was using is I could click on that assigned, and then I could click on this email button, and I could email the students who hadn't turned stuff in and say, hey, I just want to check in, make sure everything's okay. What can I do to help you turn in this assignment? And I found that to be super helpful in that distance learning space. And then in person, I could see that, check them off, and make sure I check in with that student on the day and all that kind of thing. Then with Caden, since he's turned it in, I can click on his page. It's going to pull it up for me. With the Bulb app's ability to do comments, I can go through and say, oh, I really like that GIF. That's awesome. I love Friends too. Or, you know, whatever, the dog lying down, that's a beautiful dog. Great job. You know, all that kind of stuff. I can make all my comments in there. As I'm going through. So that comment feature is really great, and I really use that quite a bit on the reflections for them. Then I come back to the grading. I say, okay, I think he got a 98 out of 100. And I click return to the student. If you want to, I've already made comments, so I don't necessarily need to do one there, but I always like to post that last one. Hey, I really enjoyed your project. Thanks for putting it in. And then I can hit return, and it's there, return to him. If you scroll all the way down to this page, I can see that I've graded his, and it's done. Then I can go back to my page, and what I see here is a grade book, and super helpful. In our distance learning, we were only giving 1s and 2s and then changing that over when we put it into the grade book. So for me, this was super helpful to see how the student was really doing in the last couple weeks of distance learning. So that's how I used Google Classroom for that. Are there any questions? I know that was a pretty good flyover, but are there any questions about Google Classroom that I can help answer?
We don't have anything in the Q&A right now. Anybody chat or Q&A that has any questions for Kris about Google Classroom? And then the next thing he'll talk about is Google Drive. Danae had asked, how do I copy these links above into my portfolio? So first, it's always important, and this is true for anything, make sure that you're logged into your Bulb portfolio, then go to that link, any of those templates, and you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, kind of what Kris showed when he was showing the student view. You scroll all the way to the very bottom of the page, and in the black footer, there's a use template down there. You can click that, and that copies the template into your portfolio. And then you can make any adjustments to the template, and then you can then distribute that out to your students via Google Classroom if you chose. And we can, during the break too, after Kris is finished, if we need to show that, I can do that during break as well. So thank you, Kris, so much for showing us Google Classroom. And just for everyone to know, we actually have a couple great graphics that walk you through the workflow that Kris showed from the teacher perspective in Google Classroom and posting an assignment, and the student perspective in terms of turning in an assignment. And so we'll be sharing those resources out with you as well. And we also have videos around our Google Classroom integrations too. We do have a question, Kris. How can I use Google Classroom rubrics in Bulb?
So what I would do is Uh, with the template that I had made, I would create the, the 6 point, I think the only one I used was a 6 point rubric. And I would have that open as I was on one side of my computer screen. And then as I was going through the page, the template page that the student had created, I would be commenting with basically comments that I pulled directly from that rubric, and that if that helps, I think that's how I used it the most.
That's how I see a lot of other teachers use it too, is the rubric is the guide for the feedback. And so they have the rubric open and then they leave the inline comments or use the comments at the bottom of the bulb page and say, based on the rubric, you got a 5 in this area, and these are the things that got you a 5, or this is an area that you were weaker in on the rubric. You might want to look at those pieces. And then that final grading piece. So the feedback lives in the portfolio, but the grade lives in Google Classroom, so that it preserves the nature of a portfolio being a place for growth and feedback and iteration, and not a place for grades. So
Right. Yeah.
that's great. And then Chelsea posted in the chat too those infographics that we were talking about, and we'll follow up in an email as well. So if we don't have any other questions, Kris, if you want to, oh, we have one more. Oh, how do I connect my portfolio to my Google Classroom? So I'll actually answer this one from a bulb technical perspective. The really cool thing is that it's already there for you. That Google Classroom button is there for everyone. So if you sign in into Bulb and you go to a page and you go to that share button, that Google Classroom button is there. And it'll pop up a modal the very first time and ask you to select your Google account. And after that, you're all connected. So.
Yep, super easy. And that's what I really liked about it too. It's already there, it's done. It's, like I said, it's very user friendly, and all those buttons lead you to the next one. So super intuitive.